Today we're going to talk about using square roots to solve quadratics. We're going to omit this for right now. This is important. Okay, we're going to be solving for x squared, and then once you have x squared equals d, if d is positive, you're going to have two solutions, plus and minus the square root of d. If d is 0, you're going to only have one solution, 0. And if d is less than 0, it's going to be no solution. So this is easiest just kind of to dive in and show you some examples. So let's look at number 1. So I have 2x squared equals 8. So the first thing I have to do is solve it for x squared. So I'm going to do that by dividing both sides by 2. So now I have x squared equals 4. Once I have it into x squared, I'm going to take the square root of both sides. When I take the square root of x squared, that gives me x, and then this could be plus or minus the square root of 4, or the positive or negative root of 4. So what's the square root of 4? 2. So my two answers are 2 or negative 2, plus or minus positive or negative 2. Right? If I put a 2 in here, 2 squared is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. If I put a negative 2, negative 2 squared is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. Let's look at number 2. So we're going to go ahead and add 18 to both sides. So I get m squared equals 0, because negative 18 plus 18 is 0. So what number times itself gives us 0? 0. So there's only one solution, and it is 0, right? If you have d equals 0, then x squared only has one solution, x is 0. Okay, and then number 3. We're going to go ahead and subtract 12, b squared equals negative 13. So I'm looking for what would be a number that times itself gives us negative 13. There is no such number because it's a negative, right? And if you have a positive and you square it, you get a positive. If you have a negative and you square it, you also get a positive. There's no way to square a number and get a negative. Okay, let's look at number 4. On number 4, we're going to divide both sides by 4. So I have x squared equals 9, my pencil just broke, over 4. And so I'm going to take the square root of both sides, the positive and negative root, and I get x equals plus or minus the square root of 9 is 3, the square root of 4 is 2. So plus or minus 3 over 2. On number 5, I'm going to divide both sides by 25, and I get x squared equals 16 over 25. So I don't want x squared, I want x. So I'm going to go ahead and take the positive and negative root. So the square root of x squared is x. The positive and negative root of 16 is 4. And of 25 is 5. So plus or minus 4 over 5. On number 6, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to divide by 9. So x squared equals 100 over 9. We're going to take the square root of both sides, and I get x equals, the square root of 100 is 10. The square root of 9 is 3. There we go. So let's look at number 7. So we're going to add 11 to both sides to get 3x squared equals 18. And then you would divide both sides by 3 to get x squared is 6. So now we're going to take the square root. X equals plus or minus the square root of 6. Okay, for our final answers today, we do not want a square root. So what we're going to do on our calculator is we are going to actually work out, well, what is the square root of 6? And it is 2.45. Okay, so we don't want, I'm just making this a little bit smaller. We want to round everything to the hundredths place. So 2.45 positive or negative. and that would be our answer. Okay, on number 8, we're going to subtract 12, subtract 12. So I have 5w squared equals negative 20. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 5. W squared is negative 4. Hopefully you caught it. It's no solution. There is no square root of a negative. Okay, on number 9, we're going to add 7. So 2x squared is 9. And then divide by 2. So x squared is 9 over 2. Then we're going to take the square root of both sides. So on my calculator, I'm going to take the square root of 9 over 2. I'm going to hit enter. So it's plus or minus 2.12. And that's my answer. Okay, number 10. Let's look at number 10. First thing we're going to do, we can't distribute because this is not just a parentheses, it's a parentheses times another parentheses, right? It's squared. So we're actually going to divide both sides by 6. Okay, and I did that so that now all that I'm left with over here is x minus 4 squared equals 42 divided by 6 is 7. Now I can take the square root of both sides. The square root of something squared is just the original expression, so x minus 4 equals plus or minus the square root of 7. And now I can add 4 to both sides. So I have 4 plus or minus the square root of 7. So on my calculator, I can type in 4 plus the square root of 7, and I get 6.65. Or 4 minus the square root of 7, and I get 1.35. And those are my two answers. That took up a little bit more space than I intended. Okay, let's look at number 11. So the first thing I'm going to do is divide by 2. So now I have x minus 2, that quantity squared, equals 9. Now I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So x minus 2 equals plus or minus 3. Okay, but I don't want to know what x minus 2 is. I want to know what just x is. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So 2 plus or minus 3. So 2 plus 3 is 5. 2 minus 3 is 1. And then I'm done. And then on number 12, we're going to divide both sides by 4. So I have x minus 3 squared equals 7. And then take the square root. X minus 3 equals plus or minus the square root of 7. So x equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 7. 3 plus the square root of 7 is 5.65. 3 minus the square root of 7 is 0.35. And those would be my two answers.